Welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting of the Cape Coral Youth Council. Today's date is November 12th, 2021. This meeting will now come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair. Before I call the roll, I would like to announce that members Blackwell, Brucker, McMillan, Michael, Zadowitz, and Vice Chair Bernal have requested to be excused, and I will mark them so. McMonigle Hall.
Here.
Osinski.
Present.
Reamer.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Young.
Present.
Squire. So we have 5 excused, 1 absent, and 5 present.
Due to the absence...
I apologize.
Oh, you're
I
good.
just want to correct for the records. Member Zadowitz also requests to be excused, so we have 6 excused, 5 present, and 1 absent.
Due to the absence of a quorum, the Youth Council will meet as a committee of the whole. Next item is item 9, recommendations to the council. As a reminder, the next quarterly report is due January of 2022. Members Osinski and Reamer, as a reminder, please take note of current and future events that we can present to the council. Next is business item 10A, Lee County Property Appraiser presentation. I would like to welcome Matt Caldwell to our meeting today.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me and giving me the opportunity to talk with you all about the process that we use and how we interface with local government here. Before I do that, I'll tell you a little bit of my background. I grew up here in Lee County my whole life. Went to local schools, attended what was then Edison Community College, now FSW, and then Florida Gulf Coast, where I got my bachelor's before I got involved in politics and was elected to the Florida House of Representatives for 8 years, 2010 to 2018, and then was elected as our property appraiser just last year in the 2020 election, replacing the 40-year incumbent, Ken Wilkinson, who was my predecessor. To give you a little bit of flavor to that, he was elected in 1980 and I was born in 1981. So he definitely was there for a very long time and some big shoes to fill. I doubt anyone on the Youth Council here is a property owner at present, but I assure you that if and when you become one, you'll be very thankful for the Homestead Exemption protection that my predecessor, had passed into law using the Florida Constitutional Amendment process, and that saves taxpayers here in Lee County money every single day. So if you'd like, I'll tell you a little bit more about our office, the process that we use, and how we interact with local government. So Florida is unique in the 50 states. Very few of them use the process we do, wherein we split the role of tax collection, real estate tax collection in particular, into very distinct categories. First of all, my office is elected. If you go to most of the cities and counties around the country, you're going to find that the assessor is actually an employee of the local government. They work for the city council or the county government, and they fulfill the role similar to the one that we do. But in our case, this office is elected, and that's unique and it's important. It means ultimately that while I work with city councils and county government, I don't work for any of the actual branches of government. I work directly for the people, representing their interests. And so we first and foremost as an office are focused on achieving a fair and equitable valuation for all of the real property in Lee County. What does that mean? You have about 500,000 real estate parcels in Lee County. We have about 150,000 tangible parcels or tangible accounts. The distinction there being real estate are obviously land and then major assets that are permanently affixed to the land. So your houses, your buildings, parking lots become real estate. Tangible property are major items, major assets, but they could be moved. So manufacturing equipment, major pieces of construction equipment. The biggest payers in the tangible account, for example, are your power plants, your utilities with all of their power lines, the communication lines, etc., things like that. Our job begins every year, January 1st. We look at every single one of those parcels, again, unique in some ways compared to the rest of the country. Many jurisdictions don't have a regular annual reassessment or revaluation of their entire property book. They might go 5, 10, 15 years between revaluations. In Florida, we revalue everything every January 1st. That is the date that all the numbers are based on, and it sets off a process. When we hit that date in the calendar, you have, as taxpayers, 60 days, 90 days actually, sorry, the end of March, to turn in your applications for the various exemptions or classifications you might qualify for. Again, the biggest one is going to be your homestead exemption. About 200,000 of those 500,000 real estate parcels have a homestead exemption on them currently. That protects the homeowner's property from going up in assessment, actual assessment, more than essentially 3% a year. There's a formula to it, it involves inflation, but the shorthand answer is you can't go up more than 3% a year. Even if the market goes up by 10%, your assessment is still capped at 3%. There's numerous other exemptions though. If you are a widow, a widower, veteran, if you're disabled, if you're blind, there are numerous exemptions under Florida law that you could qualify for potentially. And I always encourage everyone in any topic or any time I have the opportunity to speak to check out our website, leapa.org. Make sure that you see if there is an exemption or classification that you might qualify for. I use classification because that applies, for example, to agricultural properties. If you're conducting a bona fide agricultural business, you could qualify for ag classification. Essentially, the property is valued just at the use of the property, whether that's bees or pine trees or cattle or whatever that might be. It's not valued based on the highest and best use of the property. Even if its future uses to be developed for a hotel or apartment building, it only gets assessed based upon the classified use in that category. So all of those are due, as I said, by March, and we work through processing all of those, determining whether or not they're qualified. At the same time, our assessment department is researching the quality of all of the sales from the previous year. So you take every transaction that occurred in Lee County, let's take this tax year, for example. If January 1st of 21 is our value date, we're looking at January 1 of 2020 all the way to December 31st of 2020. Every single real estate transaction gets reviewed by our office to determine whether or not they're qualified, right? What does qualified mean? Are they arm's length? Are the parties unrelated to each other? Are the terms that were reached in that transaction typical for the market? Did they reflect consideration that was equivalent on both parties? If somebody had to sell because they had a family emergency, that's not a qualified sale. If somebody sells to their brother for $1, that's not a qualified sale. So we have to review all of those sales and throw out the ones that don't meet the definition of a qualified arm's length transaction. And then what's left is the data set that we're going to use for that assessment process. Now, in most people's experience with appraisal, you will have seen somebody come by your house. Maybe you've seen with your family, somebody's come appraise the house. When they get done, they have a form report, shows the details about the subject house, and then 3 comparables and makes comparisons. The shorthand for that is a fee appraisal. And that is what I did for about 20 years before I got into this role. But now, in this role, we use what's called mass appraisal. And you've probably seen a mass appraisal system if you've ever used Zillow. Zillow comes up with its Zestimate, and it's using a mass appraisal formula. It's doing ostensibly what I just described, taking all of that sale data and then using regression to come up with what it thinks the value is for all of the real estate in a certain jurisdiction. Now, we hope that we're achieving a better answer, for example, than Zillow, because we do that due diligence I just talked about, really digging into the details of all of those sales and throwing out the ones that don't apply, both at the high and the low end, if there's something unusual about it. And then really being focused on just one jurisdiction gives us the ability to hone in on the particulars. And so ultimately, that regression formula, that analysis is going to, instead of say, use a similar home next door and one down the street and one across the block, we're going to figure out what the value is of a pool or a two-car garage or a quarter-acre lot. And once we determine the value of all of those component pieces, we then have the separate department, the field department, that's keeping track of the physical attributes of all the properties. Now we know what the attributes are worth. Now we know what the attributes are. Put them together. That's where you end up with your value. And that is the number that those in the legislative branch of government, whether it's city councils, county commissions, you've got our numerous special districts in Lee County as well, mosquito control, fire boards, etc. They are all waiting for that number, that magic moment where we take the value of the attributes, the reality of the physical attributes, put them together, and what's the number for this year. And we have that prepared at June 30th, July 1st, essentially, each year. And that cues up the process that as you, in your role as youth council and figuring out, what does legislative government look like, that's where you come into play. You will, or the city council in this case, will receive those numbers, those estimates, and begin to develop their budget for the coming fiscal year. Ultimately, my office puts out what's called a trim notice, a truth and millage notice, in August. Every property owner gets one, and it shows those numbers, the assessments that we've come up with. It shows last year's millage rates for all of the local governments and what that would mean in terms of a tax bill potentially come November. And it also shows a rollback, what the local government would have to roll the millage back to or lower it to in order to not collect any actual real additional revenue. Those are the choices that are then presented for the city councils and county commissions to make in their budget hearings in August and September. Do they stay with last year's millage? Do they go to the rollback rate? Do they go somewhere between? Do they go higher? Do they go lower? But what it prepares on the taxpayer side, the taxpayer for, is the ability to come, hopefully, to those budget hearings informed and be able to advocate to those that are sitting up there in the chairs and share with them what they want to see as the millages. And that brings us full circle to why Florida is, again, unique. By separating these roles, my office not working directly for any of the taxing authorities, I develop that number, that assessment, based on what I think is fair, and then the city councils, the county commissions figure out how to set their budgets next year independent of that. We're not dependent on each other. There's no undue influence. The taxpayer is afforded what is a very open and transparent process. After the local governments decide their numbers, what their millages are going to be, that is what gets applied. Come the end of September, all that has to be wrapped up. All of that information goes with all of my information over to the tax collector, the third person that's handling real estate tax collection. And all the tax collector does, she, Noelle Branning's our current tax collector, she doesn't get involved in my valuation and she doesn't get involved in your millage setting. She gets involved in collecting it. So again, there's another separation, another opportunity or lack of opportunity for anything perhaps untoward to occur in that process. The taxpayers are secure in their knowledge that there is a good separation between those roles. Tax bills go out, money gets collected, start that process all over again next year. So in a 5-minute clip, that is what my office does, and I'm here and available for questions you guys might have about my office and real estate tax process in general.
Is there any member discussion? Well, on behalf of all of us, I'd just like to thank you. Of course.
I had a question just before I said that. Give a real example on what the rollback rate does. Like, just say previously we had a $1 million taxable rateable or $2 million rate. What would the rollback be if the next year we have $1.2 million or something like that?
Sure. So think about it in easy numbers. If a property is worth $100,000 and the tax rate is 1%, then the taxes would have been $1,000 in that year. Well, if next year the property value goes up to $200,000. And if you keep the tax rate at 1%, well, now the tax bill is actually $2,000. So in order to not collect any additional money, the local government would have to take the rollback rate, which would be 0.5% in this example. And so that's the decision that you're faced with in those budget hearings. And ultimately, of course, the revenue you collect directly impacts your ability to provide services, whether it's the existing services or the future services. Now, Lee County, something that is interesting, and Southwest Florida in general, because we are constantly growing and have been in a growth mode for the last 40 years, while that continues, you actually have new value. In other words, it's not just that our homes, our existing homes have gone up in value. You have brand new homes, real estate that did not exist in the previous tax year. And so even if you take the rollback rate, you potentially are going to receive more income just by virtue of the new real estate value that's on the books. And for example, Lee County uses that, they have a budget discipline priority where they put that chunk of money aside each year specifically for infrastructure costs, additional impacts to the roads, to the sidewalks. You'll hear a lot of conversation about impact fees and how do you pay for growth impacts. And that is one of the ways that you can look at the budget and how you structure it.
And who funds your budget?
So my budget is funded by the county. Again, while I don't work for them, I work with them. I'm one of 5 constitutional officers. Every county in Florida is guaranteed 5 executive branch members elected by the county at large. Myself, the tax collector, the supervisor of elections, the clerk of the courts, and the sheriff. And each of us have duties outlined specifically in the Florida Constitution that can't be abrogated by the legislature. And the budget for each one of us, to some extent, but exclusively for me, my office, comes from the county. We send them our estimate of what it will cost to conduct our activities for the year, and they put that in their general fund budget for the year. We do have a couple of other sources of revenue. We have a separate contract with the county for the maintenance of the GIS technology we use. They rely on that for much of their activities, and so it's a mutual benefit. And then we also receive revenue from special districts, including the city of Cape Coral. All the conversation we've had up to this point has been about ad valorem taxation, a percentage of your real estate value. There is a separate kind of real estate tax, which is non-ad valorem, your special assessments. And they are not based on what your property is worth. They're based purely on an assessment levied on each property based on whatever the local government has achieved. All property owners in Lee County pay a solid waste assessment for the garbage collection. That's based on the property type you have, not how much your value is on your property. A lot of independent special districts for street lighting, for sidewalk. We have somewhere around, I want to say 300, don't quote me on that, but we have several hundred special districts in Lee County, and currently our office has a policy of charging $1 per parcel to process that. We've not changed that price in 25 years, so with inflation, I think taxpayers are getting a pretty good savings, and even with that, if we end up net, in other words, if our office has more revenue come in from processing that than it costs us to deliver that service, and the service includes, we keep track of the specific parcels that are in your special district, we keep track of who should receive that bill, and then provide that to the tax collector. But if we make more revenue than it costs us, we have to turn that back to those taxpayers. So that service is never a net profit center, in as much as there could be, and it's really not a profit-driven office anyway.
Any other discussion? On behalf of all of us, I'd just like to thank you for coming out. It's very interesting to hear what you do and to kind of start to relate and interconnect the different parts. So thank you so much for coming out.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and enjoy this process. Appreciate you guys.
All right, moving along, we have item 10B, 2021 FLC Youth Council Video Competition Continued Discussion. This is a continued discussion from the last meeting, therefore, I will now hand the floor over to Member Rodriguez for any final updates.
The video link was posted, the final link, and I did give the link to Mrs. Griglin to give to the FLC people.
Awesome. Is there any other member discussion? Okay, moving along, we have item 10C, annual project continued discussion. Member Osinski and I, along with Mr. Mazurkowitz and Ms. Griglin, had the opportunity to tour the Lake Kennedy facility. In doing so, we were able to see the space as well as the room in which we were planning to display the art. I will now open the floor for any discussion. I have a few updates myself. I've started kind of just looking at some of the smaller details that we're going to have to eventually start to make those choices on, which is going to be food. I know we talked about having something catered, but we also, Member Osinski and I were talking about maybe having some students do hors d'oeuvres or desserts, so that can be something to consider. Also, entertainment. If you look at the pictures that were provided, the stage is actually a lot bigger than what we are anticipating. So that kind of can give you guys an idea of just who we can fit on the stage and maybe the order of the sets. And then another thing that I want you guys all to pay attention to is the little art room we planned out. It is a lot bigger of a space than what we thought it was going to be. And I think we decided that we could fit like 12 to 15 pieces in there. So that's definitely something to think about as well. Is there any other member discussion? All right, seeing none, we have item. You're good.
All right, so I just wanted to point out, as part of the attendance, I did give you guys all the updated Spring Gala flyer. So I gave you guys like each 5 copies. I'll also send it out electronically. But here is your opportunity to go out to your local businesses and start collecting donations. Obviously, if you happen to get a business and they need additional information, by all means, use me as the point of contact, and then I can assist them from there. But this, like I said, this is your opportunity to get out there early and hit the businesses.
Yes, Member McMonagle Hall.
So I know our theme is intertwined, but have we thought about like what decorations we're gonna have, like to really like encompass that? Because I know like the theme, like the community and together, but like what we're actually gonna use to decorate the facility.
I haven't personally put as much thought on that yet, because when we toured the space, there's a lot of opportunity to decorate, but we just don't know like to what extent we can do that yet. But once we get clearance on that, I think it'll be easier to kind of figure out. Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. And I was also gonna say for the art gallery, we're gonna have local artists and then like high school students too. So like, should we like talk to some of our art teachers or like maybe National Art Honor Society? Is it more like a student thing or like?
I mean,
do you know
definitely, I think we want to focus a good amount on the youth, obviously. So I would start like with reaching out to your art teachers at school and things like that. But also, I do believe we were talking to, we had a contact at the art center. Yes, Ms. Gerhard. And I believe she was also working on finding some pieces for us.
So are we taking submissions in? Because I know you said that 10 to 15 pieces can fit. So like, are we gonna choose, like say if we get more than that, like?
I think that it would be something we voted on
Okay.
in the future, the same way where we were looking at murals in that fashion, I think would be easiest.
Okay.
Ms. Member Osinski?
So when we do start collecting submissions, do we want the art to be physically handed to us, or do we want like maybe a copy and a description of the art that we could later vote on? How do we want to go about actually collecting the samples themselves?
I would think we would just want a copy or a graphic presentation, if it was a 3D sculpture, something like that, a picture of it to share so we can look at it. I would suspect that we'll have enough room for, unless there's an overwhelming run on people making submissions, I think we'll have room to put in just about everything that anyone wants to put in with 12 to 15 pieces. If we got 12 to 15 pieces of art, that would be fantastic. But if, just for the purposes of making a decision, just some sort of graphic presentation of what it is that they're proposing. And then, of course, they would be responsible completely for bringing it, setting it up, and then taking it away. You don't want to mess with other people's artwork.
Member McMonagle Hall?
And would we just have, like, how would they submit it? Would they give it to me, like us, and then we could submit the picture? Okay.
Any other member discussion? So please just keep those things in mind. Reach out to people you know who might want something on display, and get those names in. Moving along, we have item 10D, Junior Project Continued Discussion. This is a continued discussion from our last meeting where we had elected members Osinski and Reamer as chair of the project. We had discussed the process of making a new flyer for the call to artist submission. With that being said, I will now hand the floor over to members Osinski and Reamer for any potential updates.
So I have not gotten an actual PDF access to our prior flyer, but I have talked to Janely before the meeting, and as of right now, we're planning on just recreating that flyer ourselves and updating it with the dates we had talked about last meeting, and then go ahead, send that to Ms. Gerhard, get her stamp of approval before we send it out to the schools.
Awesome. Anything else? Okay. Moving along, we have item 10E, Senior Project Continued Discussion. Last meeting, member McMonagle Hall volunteered to function as the main contact for Special Pops. Member McMonagle Hall, is there any update on future potential events for Special Pops, or is there any assistance you need from any advisor with a contact for Special Pops?
No, I think I'm all set. I just wanted to clarify. So like we member Spore was reaching out to the Special Pops person to have the participants invited to the spring gala, and was she like working on anything else, or because from my understanding it was just like having them taken care of when they come to the spring gala.
Yeah, I'm not sure to what extent she got in that interaction, but I would just try and reach out again and see if they're even interested still in attending. And once we can confirm that, I think that there'll be more leeway to make bigger decisions.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I think there's two options. First of all, I would go in with the expectation of nothing has been confirmed yet. Then say, first of all, invite them as your guest, number one, of any of their students that could come, clients that can come. And then secondly, if they wanted to participate in some way, because they do all kind of really cool things, do they want to have a piece of art or participate in entertaining in some way? Anything that they may want to do, not that they would have to do, but we want to offer them the opportunity to highlight what it is they do with their clients at the gala. And if you did those two things, I think they would be very appreciative.
I agree. Any other member update? Moving forward, we have item 10F, the Lovelocks Project. At the last meeting, member Reamer had discussed Supervisor Gerhardt's suggestion of finding a local manufacturer for the design. Member Reamer, do you have any update?
So last time I had to redesign the project, which I have done, which we can vote on next time, I believe. And I did reach out to local welders, and I have gotten some offers from multiple, and I've provided a contact list that I think can be reviewed later. And one of the local welders actually said that they would provide free of charge labor, and in exchange we'd put a small plaque to advertise them. I don't know if that's something we can vote on later, or, okay. And yes, that's as far as I've gotten with that. And I also have another question. So I assume that the welding process includes engineering, but a lot of emails that I've gotten are advising me to find an engineer, a structural engineer. So I don't know if you guys, the advisors, have contacts that maybe I could use if there's no engineering process involved.
Yeah, I'm sure I do. I just can't think of anybody right offhand. Where is the design in this package now? Is this the new design?
Yes, if that's the new one, there should be pictures, yes.
That's a new one? So I need someone to design this. And the size, the overall size, do you have any concept what the overall size is?
Yeah, there should be specifications on there.
I see it, okay. All right, I'll see what I can do. And I will see if I can find one of my old engineering buddies to give it to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not making any promises on that, so.
Thank you. Ms. Griglin?
Thank you, Chair Young. I also wanted to, Member Brooker had, he was originally going to reach out to that family hardware store on 47 Terrace for us in regards to, they had made an interest to one of our other council members that they wanted to assist in that project. And it's my understanding from the email that I got from Mr. Brooker that Member Reamer, he was going to give all of your contact information over to Jeremy. You have all that information now from him?
I do not, but he did tell me he sent it to them
Oh.
to email me, but I have not gotten any email
Okay,
from him.
all right, so if you can just follow back up with Member Brooker to make sure, because obviously, it sounds like the gentleman over there obviously would like to help us and assist, so we don't want it to go by the wayside. So if you don't have that information, and they haven't contacted you, best bet is you go ahead and contact them, please.
Is there any other member discussion? All right, so next on the agenda would be item 11, which is the next meeting agenda topics, but since we're meeting as a committee of the whole, I'd just like you guys to read over them for consideration for next meeting. So moving on to item 12 is reports. I will now open the floor for any reports from the youth council members. Member Osinski?
So last meeting, we had talked about putting together a list of what ideas we would want to present in our next quarterly report. So what I just have to take into consideration right now would be our Adopt a Road cleanups, the gala, what have we progressed in that, the Veterans Day Parade from yesterday, our senior and junior projects, love locks, the election of a new chair, the scarecrow invasion, and possibly the upcoming Festival of Lights.
Awesome, those are all great, and I'm sure they will look even better in a presentation, so thank you. Next, are there any reports of the council liaison or advisors and staff? Ms. Griglin?
Thank you, Chair Young. A couple things I just wanted to point out. Obviously, I sent out the email with all the pictures, but thank you once again, everyone that came to the parade yesterday. I think it was a great hit. There was numerous people that had approached me afterwards saying that they were very excited that we had participated in the parade itself. So thank you. Second of all, I also sent up the upcoming invite for the December 4th Festival of Lights Parade. Once again, just a reminder that kind of like the Veterans Day Parade, you know, we come together as a group, we wear our shirts. The nice thing about that one in particular is when the city council goes up and the mayor makes his presentation along with any other city council members, we do have an opportunity for our chair to make, you can go up there and say a couple words on behalf of the youth council, and you, as a group, you guys can go up together on the stage. So I've already have that, you know, booked down for us. Please remember the next Adopt a Road is also the same day, December the 4th, so go ahead and keep that date open.
Thank you, Ms. Griglin. Is there any other updates?
About the December 4th, I know a couple schools, including my school, are having our homecoming that was pushed back on that date.
Okay.
So is there any way we'd be able to work around that, or would it just be something we would have to figure out?
Well, depending, I won't know till we get closer to the date, obviously what time we go up on the stage. Obviously, if it works with that, you're more than welcome. If not, I mean, yeah, then.
It's right before the tree lighting, which is at dusk. So it's probably 6-ish, 6:30 at the latest. So or maybe actually it's a little bit earlier than that, 5:30, because it's.
It might be 5:30, but
5:30.
they haven't given me a time slot,
Yeah.
so.
So you still may be able to participate in there and then run back and get changed and go to homecoming.
Member McMonigle Hall?
I also know December 4th is an SAT day,
Okay.
because I know I'll be taking the SAT December 4th.
All right, so then chances are maybe we'll pass on the adopter road for the month of December. Thank you for letting me know.
Jane Lee?
Okay, so I had contacted Ms. Hayden about the Mayor Scholarship Program, and she wanted us to spread the word about what was going on to get more participation. So I just needed everybody from schools that aren't Oasis, because I'll do it for Oasis, to just talk to your principal about posting the flyers in your hallways, if that's allowed, and then I can send you guys the flyer, and you guys can get them posted around our schools.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Right. So next item is time and place of future meetings. The next meeting of the Cape Coral Youth Council is scheduled for Friday, December 10th, 2021 at 3 p.m. in council chambers. And then I don't need a motion to adjourn, do I?
Yeah, I would say just without objection, adjourn.
Without objection, we will adjourn.